Imagine you are standing in a confined, dimly lit corridor of a breached compound, the air thick with concrete dust and the sharp, metallic scent of burnt cordite. You are holding a standard 9mm submachine gun, the weapon that has dominated close-quarters combat for decades. Suddenly, an enemy combatant steps into the hallway, wearing a modern Level 3 Kevlar vest. You squeeze the trigger, delivering a perfectly placed 3-round burst to center mass, but instead of dropping, the target simply stumbles back, the 9mm hollow points pancaking harmlessly against the woven synthetic fibers of his armor. This exact nightmare scenario is what kept NATO commanders awake at night in the late 1980s. The proliferation of cheap, effective body armor among Soviet paratroopers and global terrorist organizations meant that the traditional submachine gun was effectively dead. The 9x19mm Parabellum, the undisputed king of the trenches since World War I, simply did not have the velocity or the sectional density to punch through modern ballistic fabrics. NATO issued a desperate requirement for a completely new class of firearm, the personal defense weapon, or PDW. The mandate was brutal and uncompromising. The new weapon had to weigh less than 3 kilograms. It had to be concealable under a standard jacket. It needed an effective range of up to 200 meters. And most importantly, it had to reliably penetrate a Crisat target, a standardized test block, consisting of a 1.6mm titanium plate, backed by 20 layers of Kevlar. Two legendary European firearms manufacturers answered this seemingly impossible call, resulting in an engineering arms race that gave birth to the two most debated, misunderstood, and lethal armor-piercing submachine guns in human history. Let me take you deep into the mechanics, the physics, and the tactical reality of the FN P90 and the HK MP7 to finally determine which one is truly the superior weapon. We have to start in Belgium with Fabrique Nationale. First, when FN engineers looked at the NATO requirement, they completely discarded the rulebook of traditional weapon design. They realized that to achieve the required ballistics in a microscopic package, they couldn't just shrink a rifle. They had to invent a new geometry. The result was the FN P90, a weapon that looked like it fell out of a science fiction movie when it was unveiled in 1990. The first thing you notice when holding a P90 is that there are absolutely no protruding parts. There is no pistol grip sticking out the bottom, no extended magazine blocking your prone profile, and no charging handle waiting to snag on your gear. It is a completely smooth, enclosed polymer bullpup chassis. By placing the firing mechanism and the chamber behind the trigger group, FN managed to fit a 10.4-inch cold, hammer-forged barrel into a weapon that is only 19.9 inches long overall. This means you get rifle-like ballistic performance in a package shorter than a collapsed M4 carbine. But the true genius of the P90 lies in its ammunition feeding system. To maintain that incredibly sleek profile, FN designed a translucent polymer magazine that sits perfectly flat on top of the barrel. It holds a staggering 50 rounds. Let that sink in. In a close-quarters battle, where reloading can mean death, you have 50 rounds at your disposal. Because the magazine lies flat, the cartridges are actually facing 90 degrees away from the chamber. To solve this, FN engineered an ingenious spiral feed ramp at the rear of the magazine. As the dual-spring mechanism pushes the rounds backward, each cartridge is mechanically rotated 90 degrees downward, just milliseconds before the bolt strips it and shoves it into the chamber. It sounds overly complex, but in practice, it is flawlessly reliable. The weapon is entirely ambidextrous. The charging handles are on both sides. The safety is a rotary dial located right under the trigger for your index finger, and it ejects spent brass straight down through a chute behind the pistol grip. You can transition the P90 from your right shoulder to your left shoulder while pieing a corner, and you will never get hot brass to the face. But a gun is just a delivery system. The true lethality of the P90 is the 5.7 by 28mm cartridge. FN had to create a bullet that could defeat armor but wouldn't overpenetrate and kill innocent hostages in the next room. They designed the SS-190 duty round. It looks like a miniaturized 5.56 NATO rifle cartridge. When you pull the trigger on the P90, It sends this tiny 31-grain projectile flying out of the barrel at an astonishing 2,350 feet per second. Velocity is the enemy of body armor. When that 5.7mm bullet hits a Kevlar vest, its sharp steel penetrator core and sheer speed part the synthetic fibers rather than trying to crush them like a 9mm does. It punches through the titanium and the Kevlar with ease. But here is where the physics become terrifying. Because the bullet is so light and traveling so fast, the moment it passes through the armor and enters the soft tissue of a human body, its center of gravity causes it to instantly destabilize. The bullet begins to yaw or tumble end over end, tearing a massive temporary wound cavity, while dumping 100% of its kinetic energy into the target. It does not exit the body. This is why the United States Secret Service immediately adopted the P90 for their emergency response teams. If they are defending the president in a crowded environment, they need a weapon that will drop an armored attacker instantly, without the bullet passing through the threat and striking a bystander. The P90 fires at 900 rounds per minute. Because of the bullpup design, the straight-line recoil buffer, and the incredibly low impulse of the 5.7 cartridge, the weapon has virtually no muzzle climb. You can hold the trigger down and keep all 50 rounds inside a target's chest cavity at 50 meters. It is a sustained fire chainsaw disguised as a firearm. However, over in Oberndorf, Germany, the engineers at Heckler Koch looked at the P90 and saw a weapon that was brilliant, but perhaps too unconventional. HK believed that operators perform best under extreme stress when they rely on muscle memory. They didn't want to force Special Forces operators to learn a completely new manual of arms, figure out how to reload a weird top-mounted magazine, or deal with a bulky bullpup chassis that is difficult to shoot with one hand. HK's answer, which finally hit the market in 2001, was the MP7. If the P90 is a spaceship, the MP7 is a surgical scalpel. HK decided to stick to the classic submachine gun layout, specifically the T-shaped design pioneered by the Uzi, where the magazine is inserted directly into the pistol grip. This provides a massive ergonomic advantage in the dark or under fire. The hand finds hand principle. If you can clap your hands together, you can reload an MP7 without looking. By putting the magazine in the grip, the weapon's balance is perfectly centered over the firing hand. You can literally fire an MP7 accurately, like a pistol, with one arm extended. Something that is incredibly awkward to do with the rear-heavy P90. To achieve the armor-piercing requirements, HK developed the 4.6 by 30mm cartridge. If the 5.7mm is a miniature rifle bullet, the 4.6mm is practically a hypervelocity needle. The standard 11 German Marks penetrator round fires a ridiculously light, 31-grain copper-plated steel bullet at roughly 2,400 feet per second. It is marginally faster than the FN round, and because it has a smaller diameter, its sectional density is higher. This means it concentrates all of its kinetic energy onto a smaller surface area upon impact. In raw, hard barrier penetration tests, the 4.6mm consistently outperforms the 5.7mm. It punches clean through Krizat, targets, heavy winter clothing, and even light vehicle doors. However, it does not tumble as aggressively in soft tissue as the 5.7mm. The 4.6mm relies heavily on shot placement, operating on the philosophy that poking multiple deep, high-velocity holes in vital organs is the fastest way to shut down the central nervous system. The physical construction of the MP7 is a masterclass in miniaturization. Instead of using a traditional blowback system, HK took the gas-operated, short-stroke piston system from the legendary G36 and shrunk it down. This locked breech rotating bolt design means the MP7 fires from a closed bolt, making its first shot accuracy absolutely phenomenal. When fully collapsed, the MP7 is only 16.3 inches long. It features a multi-position telescoping stock. It also features a folding vertical foregrip integrated into the chassis for enhanced stability. You can carry it in a specialized thigh holster like a handgun, draw it, and extend the stock in half a second. Suddenly you have a stable, shoulder-fired weapon capable of engaging targets at 200 meters. The fire selector is ambidextrous, and mirrors the familiar AR-15 layout, ensuring intuitive handling. The bolt release is perfectly positioned. Every control is exactly where a trained operator expects it to be. This is precisely why SEAL Team 6 adopted the MP7 for their most critical missions. When they conducted Operation Neptune Spear, the MP7 was heavily utilized for its compact power. Whether clearing compounds in pitch darkness or climbing ladders, you need a weapon that operates effectively with one hand. Handling K9 units requires a compact frame that can still put down an armored guard instantly. The MP7 excels in this highly offensive, hyperdynamic environment, with a rate of 950 rounds per minute. It eats through its magazine, creating a literal laser beam of armor-piercing steel. Its suppressed profile emits minimal smoke and muzzle flash, essential for covert night operations. The MP7 is the surgical scalpel of special operations, offering unmatched efficiency and precision. From the shadows of Neptune Spear to the hands of the world's elite, it remains the offensive apex. So, when we put them head-to-head, which one is actually better? To answer that, we have to strip away the manufacturer marketing and look at how these weapons behave in extreme tactical scenarios. Let's look at ballistics and terminal effect first. The HK 4.6 by 30 mm will penetrate slightly thicker armor at slightly longer ranges. If your target is hiding behind a car door, the MP7 has a marginal edge. But what happens after the bullet defeats the armor? The FN 5.7 by 28 mm causes significantly more devastating soft tissue damage due to its violent tumbling effect. If you are in a life-or-death CQB situation at 7 meters, you want the threat to stop immediately. The 5.7 mm creates a larger, permanent wound cavity. Furthermore, the P90 holds 50 rounds in a standard magazine, compared to the MP7's maximum of 40 rounds. In a firefight, 10 extra rounds is an eternity. It is the difference between keeping an enemy suppressed while your team maneuvers and hearing the terrifying click of an empty chamber. Let's evaluate ergonomics and handling. The MP7 is undeniably superior for vehicle operations and covert carry. If you are a VIP protection detail sitting inside an armored SUV, swinging a P90 around inside the cabin is clunky. The MP7, with its stock collapsed, maneuvers perfectly inside a vehicle. You can shoot it out of a window with one hand while driving. Its controls mimic the weapons operators already know, drastically reducing training time. Reloading an MP7 under stress is vastly faster and more intuitive. P90 magazines are long, awkward, rectangular bricks that take up an enormous amount of space on a tactical plate carrier. You can comfortably carry 6 MP7 magazines in the space it takes to carry 3 P90 magazines. However, the P90's bullpup design provides a much longer barrel in a package that is barely longer than the MP7, with its stock extended. This longer barrel allows the 5.7 mm powder to fully burn, reducing muzzle flash a critical factor when using night vision goggles. The P90's downward ejection is also a massive advantage in team stacks. If you are stacked 4 men deep in a hallway, the guy to your left doesn't have to worry about your MP7 ejecting hot brass into his face or bouncing off the wall back into your own optics. The P90 drops brass straight down between your feet. Both are legends of engineering, but your choice depends on whether you value ballistic stopping power or vehicle maneuverability. When it comes to reliability and maintenance, both are top tier, but they achieve it differently. The MP7 requires meticulous maintenance. Its tiny gas piston system, while brilliant, is highly sensitive to carbon fouling, because the 4.6 mm round creates high chamber pressures and runs suppressed. Gas and carbon are aggressively blown back into the action. If you do not clean an MP7 religiously, it will choke. The FN P90, by contrast, operates on a much simpler, delayed blowback principle. It does not have a gas tube or a piston. It relies on the mass of the bolt and heavy recoil springs to keep the breech locked until chamber pressures drop safely. There is so much empty space inside the hollow polymer stock for dirt and debris to fall out of the moving parts. The P90 is practically indestructible. You can drag it through mud, bury it in sand, and it will continue to feed. Ultimately, Declaring a winner depends entirely on your mission profile. If you are in a defensive posture guarding a high-value target or holding a checkpoint, the FN P90 is the superior weapon. Its 50-round capacity allows for sustained suppressive fire, and its downward ejection makes it perfect for barricade shooting. Its 5.7mm tumbling round guarantees that an armored attacker goes down without risking collateral damage through overpenetration. But if you are in a highly offensive, kinetic posture, jumping out of aircraft or clearing rooms, the HK MP7 is the absolute apex predator. Its superior ergonomics, one-handed shootability, and lightning-fast reload mechanics make it the perfect surgical tool. Deeper hard armor penetration makes it a formidable choice for those executing hostage rescues or operating in plain clothes. Both weapons accomplished exactly what NATO asked of them, rendering the Kevlar vest entirely useless. If you were stacked outside a reinforced door, knowing armored hostiles were waiting, and you had to bet your life on just one, which one are you taking? Let me know your choice in the comments below.